Hi guys. Qt gives us a lot of flexibility and power to develop and code applications, but actually only very little guidance on how to make applications with a good user experience. As we also heard at the keynote yesterday, nowadays users are really demanding and expecting a smartphone-like user experience in their applications. And so in this talk, I'll show you how you can achieve this, a good user experience for Qt using Qt and the FELGO SDK. So what is FELGO actually? Well, we are a Qt technology partner now since more than 5 years, and FELGO extends Qt with additional components and tools that help you to make development faster and also to achieve a higher user experience. And because this is a developers conference, we'll show you this as part of a live coding session today. We'll use an app for that to demonstrate the best practices of user experience that we've developed for Jira for time tracking. And who of you guys is actually using Jira time tracking in your projects? Cool. For you guys, I'll share a link later then in the presentation where you can find the download link of the application that we're building now. And you can download it for mobile and also on desktop and check out the source code for yourself. With me on stage is Alex, co-founder of FELGO, and he will do the live coding parts. So please, Alex, I can sense the force is strong in you. Please start up the engine. So in this case, Qt Creator. All right. So to get all the additional components that FELGO provides, first of all, you can get it, the FELGO components and SDKs from either from felgo.com and download it there, or download it from the new Qt marketplace that is coming in 3 weeks, as we've heard from Lars yesterday in the keynote. The way this works is that it integrates nicely with your existing Qt Creator setup. So if you can make it just a little bit wider to see a little bit more exactly. The way this looks is that you get auto-completion of all the components that FELGO is on top of it. For example, if you have a look at the app text component over there and you press F1, what happens is what you would be expecting. You get documentation of all the components and all the controls that are there. And you also get, for example, auto-completion for all the additional APIs. And I'd now like to show you one of the key features that is one of the main reasons why you're faster to develop with FELGO for your Qt projects. And this is because of this little button here saying live. So please, if you can click it, what happens when you click this is the code reloading solution that is a tool that allows you to develop QML applications a lot faster. The way this works is actually 2 applications that are now starting up. On the bottom right, you can see the FELGO Live server, and on the top right, you can see the FELGO Live client. So how does this work? The Live server connects with multiple devices connected with it and deploys all of the QML files to the connected clients with it. So if we now, for example, change something in the text of the app text and set a different value there, what the live server is doing, it detects that the source file, any of the source file of the QML files got changed. And if we hit save now, you can see that it's updated automatically in the live client on the top right. And so this really saves a lot of time, actually, because you save the time that you would need to recompile it and then maybe even deploy it to a mobile or embedded device. This can take very long, as this distribution goes over sockets and over the local network or your local Wi-Fi network. This is a lot faster in testing on real devices with using that. Another advantage is that you can connect multiple devices and all the connected devices get updated at once. You'll see that in a little bit later. Also, because this live server and live client are standalone applications, so these are own executables that are run, you can use this with any other IDE as well. So you can use this with your local text editor, you can use it with Visual Studio or any Qt Design Studio, for example, Qt 3D Studio, and it also works with the Qt Quick Designer. All right, so now let's continue and add some more interesting stuff than just changing a text. Let's add a few items to this login page. Add the several app text fields and an app button here. So we've prepared that, just uncomment it. And if we now hit save, we will see that the application gets updated as well. And so I now want to show you a special feature of this code reloading. There's actually two generations of code reloading. The one that you get online now is the live code reloading. So what happens there is that you start at the very fresh state of your QML application every time. The new product that we've released now is called hot code reloading. And what this allows you to do is that it saves all the state in the QML application that you have been currently working on. So for example, if we add some values here into the text field, and then if you would change anything in the QML files, for example, change the text again, and if we now hit save, what would actually happen is that all the text fields here would be gone. But with hot reloading, all the values and all of the input controls that you added there still are staying. So this really helps to save a lot of time during development because the previous state is restored. You could also forcefully do a full reload. For example, if you click on Live Client, a full reload now, and then you will see that the text value of the text field is empty. But by default, the client tries to do the hot calling as often as possible because that's even faster for deployment. And you don't need to navigate to any sub page any longer. You can also see this now in the next minutes of the live coding session, that this is actually really saving time because you don't need to navigate to a sub page anymore. All right, so let's have a look at some of the code there and why this is relevant for a good user experience. So if you can see here, for example, the sizes are defined in a method function here called SP, and there is a value in there. So what this is doing, it is a density independent way of defining sizes for Qt applications, because that's not built in Qt right away. The way this works, it's really like the same physical size on all connected devices. So no matter what kind of screen density your application has or your target device has, this is the same physical size that you can use. And one additional advantage that the SP function has is that it, first of all, it takes into account the current user settings that the user has defined in the settings of the operating system. So for example, on desktop, you could have a different DPI value, different screen zoom set in, and this system setting is then read here. And also on the mobile devices. Especially smaller devices, people tend to adjust the screen size on a system level, and this function takes this into account. So for any text values, the SP function is the best way to modify sizes. For any other dimensions, the DP function is there. So for example, for spacings or width settings or margin, make sure to use the DP value because that is density independent as well. The names of this SP and DP is taken from the Android system actually, because Android has very similar challenges actually like Qt has in terms of cross-platform support. A wide range of platforms, a wide range of different screen densities, and you basically need to support all of them. So you need a flexible system to be able to challenge this problem. And the nice thing is, as this is the same concept as there is used on Android, you can find a lot of online material for design best practices. For example, how big should a button size be? Should be 48 dp, by the way. Or how big should margins be between two elements? So it's big enough to click on it on a touch-based system. And you can then use all of these guys with these values. The cool thing is that you can simulate how your application will look like on the desktop using FELGO. So for example, if we now would change the size of the live client to something different, and basically change a different resolution setting on the top and set it to simulate basically an iPad setting, you will see that the scaling actually of this window is changing. But this is like a real preview how this application will look like on the iPad. So you can make sure that it will look the same as you have here on the desktop when you simulate it. Also, the menu that you can see in the resolution on the menu bar over there, this is also customizable. So you can add your devices to this menu bar and then quickly switch between different resolution sizes with hotkeys, so Control 1, 2, 3, etc. All right, so let's make it a little bit smaller again so we can better work with it. Regarding user experience, I want to highlight a few more things here in this login page, because actually the login page is actually one of the first things where we usually see a lot of things done wrong with Qt. There's a lot of like minor details, but I think these details are really very important for user experience because the details decide if your app is just okay and usable or if it's like really good and outstanding. And what we should aim for is outstanding applications that the users are loving. So some examples for what are some best practices for input methods in login pages. So if we click, for example, into one of these text fields and type something, there should always be a close or a delete button on the right-hand side. Or if there is a password field, there should always be a visibility toggle in there. Advantage when you're using FELGO that these details are already in place. So you get this out of the box by just setting the different input mode property values over there. Another issue that we often see with Qt applications is when you run this on your embedded device or on a mobile and you're having a keyboard input and you click somewhere, that the content on the screen is actually then not visible anymore because the virtual keyboard is shifting up. And then the content would be underneath and you cannot really type into it anymore. So to properly support this would be actually required that you check the height of the virtual keyboard, then you shift all your page content up. And first of all, there is no method in Qt that you could query the keyboard height by default from QML. And second of all, you would need to do this on your own. Advantage with FELGO is whenever you're using any of the page components, this is happening automatically as well. All right, another detail regarding not only login pages, but general, especially for mobile best practice, there's a lot of devices on the market right now that have this notch, as it's called on iOS or on Android, it's called a display cutout. And by default, the Qt application writes over this notch. So you need to manually check how big is this notch size on the top where the camera is inside. And you would need to apply the changes in your sizes of the application manually. And you would need to use native code, iOS and Android code for that. Again, with FELGO, we've got this covered. There's a property that you can use, how big is the save area, so to say, of a page. And you can do this very easily. There's also a content item that you can anchor your content with. By default, the page content, that's also why the root component here is a page, handles this all automatically. All right, so now let's check out what the application is actually doing. Let's click on the login button. And now let's just do a quick demo of what the application actually does. Like I mentioned, it's an application for tracking time. So you can, what you can see here, there's two different tasks that we have tracked, one with 30 and one with 20 minutes. You can change the time that, or all the values that was tracked. If you click on one of these items, then we can change, for example, the comment, change this to something else. We hit save. The comment got changed here in the list. And then we can, of course, also add a new time log of a task that we have been working on. So if you click on the play button, choose one of the tasks and add a comment for that, hit save, then that's updated in the list as well. So that's it. One specialty for UI and UX is that you should always use the available application and screen size as good as possible. So there is a different UI that you will show on a smartphone than compared with a tablet or a bigger screen size and bigger inch size. Cool thing with FELGO is that all the controls and components automatically adapt to the screen size. So this is called a responsive layout or adaptive layout support. So let's try that. If we, for example, just change the width of the application, then you can see, first of all, that on the left-hand side, navigation icon is added. And on the right-hand side, if we click now on one of these workload items, we can see that an additional page can be added there. This is called a master detail view, and this is very nice user experience to support this for like bigger screen sizes as well. The way this works in code is if we jump, I think it's in the main.qml file, there is a navigation stack component in there, and the navigation stack has a split view property that you can set. So if we comment the split view property here and see what happens, hit save. You can see over there, there's no split view any longer, and this is the default setting. So anyways, if you have a bigger screen size, we recommend to set this to true if there is a tablet actually detected. The tablet property gets true if the screen size is bigger than 7 inches, but you can also, of course, override this. Also, you can adjust the size, of course, of each of these columns. So for example, if you set the left column with something else, make it a little bit smaller and hit save, you can also see that the whole layout changes dynamically. And again, you can see here how the hot reloading is really cool, because if you would have like just a regular reload of the whole QML application, you would always start at the login page. But now we're always staying at the actual page content where we are right now. All right, another pretty cool feature which helps you in developing better user experiences is to simulate different platforms while you are on your PC. You can do that with the theme menu bar icon over there. There's also shortcuts for it. If you change this to iOS now, you can see that the whole styling of the application changes. It changes to match really like the native user experience of that platform, in this case of iOS. It changes not only the whole navigation concept. So for example, the navigation tabs are now on the bottom and not on the very mini bar on the left-hand side. But it also changes all of the controls over there for the look and feel. So all the buttons look different, the text fields looking different, the navigation paradigms are different. So there's a swipe back gesture available on iOS, and you can use that with that one. And very similar for Android. So if you change the theme to Android now, you will see that was a shortcut. You can see that now there's also looking very different. So if you check the navigation drawer on the left-hand side, the navigation items are now in this navigation drawer item there. And cool thing is all of this source code is on the left-hand side. So this is all done and applied automatically for you. There's no like custom modifications that you need to do for that. All right. Let's on Android we are right now. That's cool. So also if you click on logout, so if you are accessing the accounts page and then click on the logout button, exactly, and then you can also change the theme here, and you can see the different controls and actions and how they look on Android and desktop. They're looking different then as well. So going back to Android now, simulation is good and fine, but what is even better if you test this on your real device. So this is what we're going to show you now. I think we need to start up Visor still. Visor is a tool where you can stream the content from an Android device on your PC. So we have an Android device with us here. And the way this works is that the Android phone is connected to the same Wi-Fi now as the PCs is. So both of them are finding each other. And then there is an application that is available in the app stores, which is called FELGO Live, available for iOS and Android. And if you click that, then you can see the live client application, how this is looking like on a mobile device. And if you click now on Connect Desktop, you can see that on the live server on the button, a new connection request is detected. We click on Accept. And now all the content is streamed to the Android device. And as you can see here, this is like the real Android device. You have the same result over there. Very similar on iOS, so you can also test on iOS from a Windows PC or a Linux PC. You don't need the Mac for that. And also working the same for your embedded device. So you can connect your embedded device over Wi-Fi or local network. And very similar, all the content can be streamed very easily to that device as well. Also, you can see here on the live server that you get the log messages, for example, per device, and you can have a look at what the different applications, what kind of log messages there are. All right, now let's dive a little bit deeper into what else is there, what makes a good user experience. So if you can click on Login on both in the desktop simulator and on the Android device, and if you're now heading into one of the work logs, yeah, exactly, and also on the Android device, perfect. So what you can see here already, there's in the middle, there's the desktop version of the controls, and on the right-hand side, there is the Android versions. And if you click now on the date picker, for example, on desktop, you can see here that the native Windows native date picker is popping up. And if you click on the date picker on Android, you will see that the native Android date picker is popping up. This is just one example. So there is like over 200 APIs and controls that the FELGO APIs support on top of that. There's also support, for example, for a time picker. And for desktop, for example, changing a time is more convenient actually with the keyboard than with clicking somewhere. So we enabled a keyboard support in this case for the time picker here. And this is also really a good user experience for the users to really use the keyboard when it's when it makes sense, and use touch-based controls on touch-based devices then. Also, as you can see here, for example, all the controls, the FELGO controls, all have a hover effect when you're mouse hovering over them, and also a press state when you click on any button. This is our like small details, but users will realize this if you apply this or not. Another important feature to improve user experience, to increase the awareness of the users with your brand. And this is very easy to do with the FELGO controls because all of the controls are very easily stylable. The way this works is that there is a theme singleton property where you can change all the different colors and settings very easily. So if you change this to just any other value or color, and again we hit save, then you can see that all the connected devices are updated with this new setting. So you can very easily test and try out how is the different theming working for my application and optimize that on multiple devices simultaneously. Also, as you can see here, hot code reloading is really useful again because it stays in the very same screen that you have been before. Another best practice is using animations to highlight very important user input controls. So for example, if we go into the work log detail page again on an Android device, you can see that there is a floating action button on the bottom right hand side here as a shortcut to save this item. If you click on cancel and open this page again, it's a good practice to like moving this and animate it, because this is probably the button that gets pressed like 99% of the time on this page. And to like make it visually a little bit more appealing to the user, use animations to really make it a nice experience for the users. Another best practice example is to really use the available components that are native to a platform, like the floating action button should actually only be used on an Android device and not on other devices, because it's not that common on these platforms there. There's also another pretty useful component for touch-based devices, which is a swipe options container. So if we're going to the list of the work logs and we swipe left, for example, on one of the items, we can add a shortcut here to add the new log work item for the very same task that we had before. So if you click this is just another shortcut basically to add a new log item. And this is very similar like on desktop, like you have the shortcuts available for keyboard. This is really like a good user experience actually to make it easy for them to do the most common tasks very straightforward. And also on the right-hand side, for example, you can delete the entry here. And the way this looks in code is if you're having a look, I think it's in the work logs page. The delegate is a swipe options container, and then you have a left and right option where you can define one or multiple buttons that you can then click. All right, another best practice, especially when working with QML, is to never block the UI thread with any like intense CPU intense operations. And by default, all of the JavaScript code, for example, is done in the JavaScript in the UI thread. So really be careful what kind of code you call from JavaScript. However, it is not required that you do like basic operations like defining a list model in C++. That is sufficient to do in JavaScript as well. So if you're heading into the data model here, where we have the work logs model, you can see that the model actually for this list here is a JSON list model. If you click F1 for a documentation, this is really a cool component that's internally developed in C++, but for you as a user, you can use the QML APIs for that and access this from a QML environment without having any penalties in performance. Also, for example, for sorting and filtering, there's a sort filter proxy model that's available. And we can use that, for example, in the issues page to add a search field in the issues page, exactly. So if we enable that and add this, you can see that you can search now, and that with every keyboard press, actually the content gets updated dynamically. All of this is working in a background thread in C++. However, for you as a developer, you can still use the QML APIs for that. All right, so that's the live coding session. Overall, the whole application only has 470 lines of code. So this should give you an understanding of actually how good of a user experience you can achieve with very little code. Also on iOS and Android, native user experience are optimized for touch-based devices. Make sure to use the FELGO controls. They're really there for making the user experience of your Qt applications better and helps you to develop faster, basically. And the code reload is really useful for any like QML projects that you're having. It does not require any FELGO component, works with standalone Qt and QML projects as well. All right. As I mentioned, you can get the application also in the app stores and download it for PC on the link mentioned here. It's for managing time logs for Jira. It's pretty handy and useful. We're using it internally also quite heavily. The time tracking experience with this application gets a lot more fun than it would be otherwise. All right, and also if you're are looking into like more advanced applications, there's a lot of SDKs, lots of examples that you can check out in the FELGO SDKs, open source. And we also have a pretty intensive QML architecture guide where we explain the best practices, how to deal with like bigger sized applications in QML, where you can still have a good performance and nice separation between model and view within QML, because essentially QML really helps you to save time in development. All right, so with this, may the force be with you, and this is really the last hour's quote. And thanks for having me.